me. Come on strong, go on and love me. The south waves that big old moon. Wake up and smell the perfume. Just say if you want.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Marketing Momentum with Charles and Deborah. You got a haircut.
Yeah. It was. I had to do a little talking at an event on Friday, and so I decided not to embarrass my wife anymore, and so she's been asking me and for months, and so I just decided to go ahead and give in.
Really? So this is her preferred.
And I did it this time. Yeah, no, and I did it this. No, well, she just doesn't want it hanging over my eyes, practically. Well, figuratively. So I just decided to, and she didn't even ask me this time. I just did it. But of course, she's been asking me for months. So.
Well, that was nice of you. That shows love.
Yeah, it does. Right. Exactly. You had the adventure, right? So you were out in Las Vegas, and you got to, dance with Matt Cutts and all the other stuff. So dying to hear about that.
Okay, I learned a couple of things. First of all, I realized after I got home that I didn't even look at the strip. Can you believe I went to Vegas and I worked, and I didn't even think I looked like my eyes towards the strip. Like, what's wrong with that?
No, I had that. I've had that same experience there in Las Vegas. Had the very same thing. Got there and worked so hard I didn't see anything.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I love Vegas, but I probably take it for granted because it's not that far away. So if I really wanted to go and just experience Vegas, I could.
Yeah, no, right. Yeah, and really, for all intents and purposes, it's just like California if you work there all the time. If you're working all the time when you're there.
Exactly.
No different.
Exactly. I learned a lot. I learned that I've always been I've been an attender at conferences. I've also been in upper management. You get to tell people what to do at conferences. And also as a number one jazz singer, I got to be the celebrity at you've heard of gifting suites, where you go and the celebrities get all these gifts.
Yeah.
So I'm a helper type. So it's I wanted to be a grunt. I wanted to work. So I thought this time we'll go work a booth. Well, wow, I really appreciate people that work a booth the whole time because I am tired out.
It's not easy.
It's not. I think I've decided that from now on I'll be somewhere in between. I don't like being the celebrity to the point that I don't get to. I really do like to work, actually. I don't want to be worshipped. I want to work, but I don't want to work myself to death.
Okay, so what were you doing? What was your role in the booth?
I actually helped out Ann Smarty in the My Blog guest booth. I got to meet her administrator, Sana Knightley. So it was fun to meet both of them and to kind of that cultural experience. So that was a lot of fun. Yeah,
no, that's cool.
That was, I think I was needed, but that sounds really narcissistic and egotistical for me to say that. But as far as trying to bridge that gap between the Ukrainian culture and the American, it also helps because the language is my native language.
Yeah.
But
right.
You got to be able to read people that come up to the booth. It helped me to learn what to expect from people that would work my booth, because you learn different things that help. And one of them is to be able to read people, look at them in the eye. Don't do your 15-second pitch. Have that, in case you need it, rather than go duh, duh, But look them in the eye, ask them questions, and figure out what they need and address that.
Yeah, no, I think that's important. So now, what were primarily the people would you say they were looking for? So they would come by the booth, or you'd probably even overhear them in other booths when they would stop by these booths. I've always wondered, when you I'm not an exhibit person, right? And that probably has to do with the reason why I'm sitting behind a computer rather than being out at an event. So what kind of things are people really coming to you and they're asking about when they come to the booth?
Well, fortunately for Anne and for the My Blog Guest brand, that brand actually was very complimentary to most of the other offerings there, because there was a representation, a lot of SEO. Although, is that surprising? Anywhere where Matt Cutts is speaking, I mean, if there was not an SEO presence, there's going to be. So a lot of SEO agencies like that. Now, fortunately, the My Blog Guest brand is about connecting publishers and writers. So if you're an SEO agency with writers, you can get connected to publishers. If you're a publisher and you're looking for content, you can find those SEO agencies and freelance writers at My Blog Guest. So actually for Anne, it worked out. I don't want to say that it's not her knowledge and expertise, but what My Blog Guest offers was a perfect fit for all the other offerings.
Oh, that's cool. So now, did you meet any? I don't want to call them celebrities, but did you meet any? I guess what do you call them? Big keyboards or something like that? I don't know what you call them.
I think so, but see, here's the deal: when you live in California for so long, you spend so much time befriending celebrities and protecting their anonymity that when you meet one, it's like, oh, you're a celebrity, no big deal. So I am like totally off the celebrity worship to a point where now it's like I have the opposite of celebrity radar. Does that make sense?
Right. Yep.
But there's a few. My husband's back there snapping some pictures like, oh, I can't even remember who it was. I have to look through his pictures and stuff. It's like, oh, that's a celebrity. Oh, yeah, whatever. I mean, although a lot of people are looking at Anne Smarty like, oh my goodness, like this worship, like, oh, wow, it's Anne Smarty. And I'm like, it's Anne. I'm not minimizing Anne expertise, but it's just Anne, Right.
No, that's cool. Yeah, because, you know her like that, right?
Mm-hmm. And that really is it's really strange, the Los Angeles area compared to the rest of the world. Because, I went to a Mexican restaurant. I was eating with my friends. We walked out, and there's Penny Marshall, and you're just waving, for those of us that watch reruns as far as Laverne and Shirley. Yeah. They're just ordinary people. They eat. They use the bathroom. They do everything that we do. Right. And they got to eat somewhere, and she wanted Mexican. So, it's so commonplace. But I did enjoy Matt Cutts. Right.
And man, it's like, you thought, it was really wild. What's really wild about that is, man, he's like, I think people don't really even care about, and this is not a political statement. I think people care more about what Matt Cutts said. They were live blogging him like he was the president. It was almost like you were there because, man, everybody you had to have more people live blogging Matt Cutts than there are pool reporters in Washington, D.C. covering the president.
I believe it. And that's part of the reason why I didn't. I thought, I'm just going to sit back and enjoy this because I know that by the time someone's live blogging it, so I might as well have the experience. Did you catch his appendix?
Tell me what it is, because I heard a lot of what he talked about. Yeah.
It is PR brilliance. I know that the rest of it, the main core of his presentation is the most important. I have to say that. I'm on a Google platform. That is the most important. But if you're talking scandalous and you're talking the fun stuff to listen to, you got to find his appendix. You're better at names than I am, but the guy that spoke on Monday, and I'm really embarrassed that I don't have his name on top of my head. That's how memorable it was, right? He has Mahalo, and he picked on Matt Cutts, and we're all like, "Oh no, how could you do this?" And he said, and again, might as well look on YouTube because I'm sure that you'll find the clip of him saying that. But he doesn't know did he call Matt Cutts stupid? I can't remember what it's like. Is he really dumb, or is he really evil? Because the whole idea was that they're being penalized, but Matt Cutts kept saying, "Well, it's not a penalty," and so forth. And again, I don't do it justice. You should really see what Matt says, but. I kept asking myself, because remember, Charles, we've talked about Ryan Holiday. Is this a PR stunt, or is this real? Either way, Matt Cutts, I thought, handled it with brilliance as far as PR move. And
no, I did not hear about that. I will check it out, though, now you talked about it, though.
Well, what he did is he addressed it. In a classy way, again, whether planned or unplanned or whatever, he said that he wasn't going to go into a cage with this guy from Monday, that he had heard that he was called evil while he's flying into Las Vegas. And he's just, he's going to be classy about it. But it was like the people he said, I prepared an appendix, but, and of course, by that point, you might as well be at a strip club, demanding for the show. And you're like, no, we want to hear it. So that, it's like, all right, the people demanded. So right away, the appendix went up, and he went through step by step every complaint that had been made on Monday. And addressed it. And actually, I don't know that everyone. I'm not saying I'm like madly in love with Matt Cutts, but I don't have any complaints.
Right.
but I don't follow like his every breath. So, I mean, I have no complaints about the guy, but I thought that the way he handled it from a PR perspective was brilliant. The way he addressed the questions. And he said, what do you say to a person if nobody wants to visit their website and they're voting the site down in Google? Do you go up to the person and say your site's crap according to users? Or do you say Google hasn't given you a penalty? Which one do you say?
Yeah, man. I mean, from his overall comments, and I think we've talked about it on this show too. That a lot of what they're asking for, I think we've been so long kind of conditioned to believe that the game, right, the game or the dance that we do is the marketing, and every piece that they remove from that process or kind of take away from people feel like, well, man, this is not fair. You should have warned us. But it was kind of always, to some degree, manipulating the search results to some degree, and so they get smarter at it, and they say, okay, we're gonna eliminate this part, and it always feels like you're having the rug pulled from under you. But really, they've kind of been a somewhat consistent, and I know I sound like an apologist, right? And I'm not one, right? Because look, I mean, they're in it to make money. I'm in it to make money. So I mean, I'm not trying to worship them. I'm just saying, I think they've been pretty consistent about what they've said folks ought to focus on from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. And that's basically what Matt said as far as the, some of these changes and things and the different Google updates. People are like, how can you do this? How could there not be warning? But the reality is they've been saying it all along, and he showed different things, write-ups from newspapers, so forth, where he said, okay, when are you going to address this issue? He said, we addressed the issue. It wasn't as sudden as, okay, obviously whenever an update comes out, your computer update comes out, it seems sudden because right at that moment, bang, we're updating our computer. But that doesn't mean it was sudden and it's coming.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, and honestly, I'm guessing, right, and that they don't necessarily want, and I it feels weird even saying this. I'm guessing they don't really want folks focusing on what their updates are, right? Whether or not it's Hummingbird or Panda or whatever the case is, I think what their desire is for the sake of their customers, right? They're looking to give their customers the very best information about any topic they want on demand, right? So I think apart from that, there's no guarantee that, if we do certain things, that they're going to show us to their customers. Right, and so I think, whenever I hear the discussion, or even when I hear, some of the stuff we do, I think we do out of necessity, right? Some of the stuff, I mean, honestly, right? Some of the sharing we do, we don't share because we think it's cool all the time, right? Mm-hmm. Honestly, sometimes we share stuff because you got to tick off that box, right? You got to tick off, well, this has got to be shared on Facebook and all, and I'm guessing that they don't want that, right? They sort of want you to just kind of, I mean, yeah, it's La La Land and it's Pollyanna, but I'm guessing they sort of want you to focus on, hey, well, who am I talking to? Let me get my research right. Let me make sure it's communicated right, and just let the chips fall where they may. Now, of course, we're all in business. We don't let the chips fall where they may, but
to try to move them.
Right? Yeah, we try to get them all and then move them, and then. But I think that's what they sort of want in this perfect world sort of thing.
Probably first, people want to make money, and second, they want quality. And the first is, and maybe I'm just looking at myself and I look at, the first is a reality. Money doesn't grow on trees. Mm-mm. So you need to do, but
that's right.
I think many of us that are striving for any kind of quality in life also want quality in what we do as far as our work. So I believe that Google wants quality. Whatever people want to say about Google, I think there's an element there that I don't know what the percentage is. Is it 99%? Is it 80%? I don't know that I care what the percentage is. I just am satisfied with saying Google wants quality.
Yeah, and at some point, um, yeah, it's interesting because I think for the first time in a long time, at least since I've been involved, they're basically almost. I mean, the hummingbird thing. If you add it all up, man, and they've sort of like really changed the whole thing. It's all just about all personalized, and they're saying basically, man, you just can't in the long term game this system anymore. And so, does that mean the end of the SEO industry? I mean, I don't know that. I mean, probably not, but it doesn't mean the same thing as it used to mean. If you can't if you can't control things by links, right? If you can't dictate authority by linking, and you can't necessarily dictate things by I read something today where he basically said, well, if you got a lot of pages, it doesn't mean anything, right? But what's the mantra typically been? I mean, if you've got a lot of relevant pages, you're going to rank higher. You're going to rank more. You're going to have a lot of your stuff seen. We're saying, well, it doesn't matter anymore. Now, does that mean that that's in the algorithm? I don't know. But it sounds like that's something that they want to do away with, this myth that it should matter. But people did that stuff because of the game, right? They did it because it's the reality of the game. And so they're sort of trying to tweak this thing so that we don't focus on the gaming part, and we sort of focus on spend our resources, the balance of our resources on delivering content for whatever the reason, right? Because some of us deliver content for content's sake, and that's how we make money. Some of us deliver content so that we can get people into a marketing funnel so we can sell to them. Doesn't even matter what the purpose is, but it sounds like they want us to focus on getting to the message to the right people, regardless of what the purpose is.
To me, that always should have been the goal. It's just, how did you actually police that, and what is that? I heard Don Sturgill, excellent freelance writer. I mean, just a gifted writer, and I heard him say in one of the hangouts, and he was talking about how, you go to these conferences, you talk to other SEO people, and they say, oh, we're white hat, we don't do that. And they're doing some black hat, not because they're some evil people, but because when you can game the system, and you've got a lot of black hat that are doing 100% black hat, and maybe you've got somebody doing 80% black, pretty soon you literally don't survive unless you're doing black hat. And I don't know that I can fault the people that were kind of gray hat, that they were, 20% black hat, 80% white hat, because it doesn't, you think about, what would your mother say? It's like, the ends doesn't justify the means or whatever. And I truly believe in that. But if most of the SEO society is gaming it, and anyone that's left that's not gaming it starts to game it because they simply are drowning because they can't survive, then I applaud Google for actually fixing that so that people are forced to do white hat, because then the quote unquote honest people that are trying to do it according to Google's rules have a chance.
And it's really interesting because, I mean, and you've been doing this about as long as I have, right? And there sometimes there can be a herd mentality, right? And when something gets shut down, then the herd travels someplace to do something else, right? And so now, and it's not as easy to do it now, but people are starting to come over and they say, we got to be doing video. Got to be doing video because video ranks, right? Video is important. Video does all this stuff, and so it looks and feels like the same thing. It's not like, well, this is working, and this is always going to work, and you got to get into this because it's huge. Man, it just really feels like, maybe not tomorrow, but it kind of feels like, okay, well, if I'm not doing video to connect, doesn't matter what Google does. They can at any point in time say, we're going to change this, right? They can be in the background, say, okay, we're going to change this, and then all of a sudden, it doesn't work the same way. You're trying to game the system. And it's interesting. I was showing some, and I want you to comment on the other stuff, but and because I wanted to tell you about this. I was in my econ class, right? I have microeconomics classes, son. And so, I mean, I'm grasping at straws to some degree to really give like the extra content, right? Because I sort of thrive on being able to bring in the outside resources, and that kind of gets me energized to be able to teach the stuff. I just can't teach it as it is. But so I
You have to make it
found,
interesting.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard for me just to kind of take the book. I know it well enough to do that, but I can't get, excited about it. But anyway, I go looking on YouTube, just this time not as a marketer, right? So I went looking on YouTube and I said, okay, let's see what's on there for supply and demand, right? So put in supply and demand, did a couple of searches, and lo and behold, there's a lady, her name is Jody. I don't even know what her last name is. And apparently she teaches econ to MBA students. Well, she's got about a couple of hundred videos, and she's got about 12,000 subscribers, right? Listening to her talk about econ, right? And so she's going.
And that's not really
and
popular. I mean, that in and of itself is not like, oh wow, I got to go watch my.
No, it's not. And she's not necessarily. I mean, my class, they found what she did informative, but they weren't really impressed. They were kind of like, okay, well, this isn't all that more exciting than reading a book, but she's still got. I mean, but if you read the comments, people love what she's doing. And I said all that to say, she was the one that kind of was present, right? Google made her available to me. I would have never known this woman had I not done a search and Google not shown her videos to me. And why did it? Did the algorithm work right? I don't know, but 12,000 other people seem to feel like, well, hey, this, if you're going to learn econ, want to learn supply and demand, here's a lady you should be listening to. And yeah, she's got ads on it and the whole thing. I don't know. Is she making $1 million? Probably not. But there are a lot of people watching a lot of videos, and her videos have a lot of views.
And she wouldn't be there without YouTube.
So I think,
Google.
who would even know or care, right? Same thing. Somehow or another in the same story, I found there's a guy who sort of found me like online, and he does the same thing, but he's doing it with biology, right? I think he's got something like 400 videos explaining anatomy and biology, and see, this kind of goes back to, I think, what you and I have talked about before. He's now starting to do blogging videos, like showing people how to blog, but that's what everybody does, and we're sort of all in that game to some degree. But where his money's made and where his following is creating out of who he is, what he knows. So he's a biology student. I don't know if he's a med student or not, but he just started making these videos. He got somebody to sponsor him with some kind of model. And I think that has to do with the fact that, again, here's a guy who's got knowledge to share based on his expertise, and it's not about the game, right? So now as a blogger, he's talking about, well, you got to have these backlinks and all these other stuff, but his biology stuff is just the stuff, man. It's just like it's the video. It's about communicating the stuff, and people like it. Some people. Now imagine, some people who are not into that stuff, they're never going to see his videos. They'd never search for it, and when they found him, they might not like his personality and the whole deal. But couple of hundred people like all his videos all the time. So Google shows his stuff to people who are looking for biology. That's right. That's the way it's supposed to be. He's got a level of expertise about that, and people might not ever connect with him about his stuff he's doing on blogging, right? Because he doesn't really have. He's got the expertise, but his his thing is biology. So it's to some degree, it's kind of really kind of, for those of us who are information kind of people, it kind of gets us back to kind of starting thinking about, okay, who are we, and what are we really, what are we really qualified to talk about, right? We all got to sell, right? But where's the audience? Where are we going to be able to make the most at? And it's probably going to end up being where we've got the level of expertise where people really want the information.
That's a good point as far as, it goes back to basic business as far as your objective and figure out what your thing is. And I think that's what Google is trying to say, like even Matt Cutts' example from the guy that spoke on Monday, where it was like people were actually voting that they didn't want to look at your site, and Google responded to that. So I think before we start saying, Google, you're so awful, like you said, you found what you were looking for as far as the biology and the econ. So Google must have been, and you said it, Google must have been doing something right to be able to deliver what it is that you're looking for. You mentioned blogging, and I'm putting together, and this is not an advertisement, it sounds like it the way I'm starting the sentence, but I'm putting together a free Udemy course for blogging. But the key here is free. Why is it free? It's because I'm not claiming that blogging is my thing. I know how to blog. There's just certain little tricks, tips, things that I've found along the way that I just want to share. Yeah. But I'm not going to go put a price tag. Okay, yeah, I say this and just whatnot. I'm not going to go put a price tag on it because I'm not I can think of a lot of people that have blogging courses that you should pay money for, but just want to share it. So that's the thing. It doesn't mean that you can't share something that's not your thing.
Right.
But figure out what your main thing is,
I think, yeah, and some of this stuff, and I mean, Google's not God, but it's 66%.
I mean, we survived without Google.
Yeah, but 60 in the search market, maybe so, right? And so it does kind of force you back to, whatever you're, where are you uniquely, because where are you uniquely competitive, right? Where is a person uniquely competitive? If your thing is delivering information, whether or not you sell that information, whether or not you use that information to bring people into a marketing funnel, where can you deliver, uniquely, powerful, almost life-changing information? Man, it's almost like you're kind of forced to kind of start there. Right, if that it's less, again, I think we talked about that, and maybe it's less about your passion and it's more about where are you most effective with people, and maybe that's kind of like we're all kind of needing to go to that point, because that's where, even if we haven't developed ourselves as authorities, that's sort of what they want, right? They sort of want to have people, as I read it, people who have these centers of authority can just crush, not because, well, you gotta get content out, but it's just kind of, I can crank this stuff out because it's in me, right? I don't have to go get it from other places. I don't have to curate it. I can do all that stuff, but really, it's like, what can I put out routinely that people, are going to get like the best possible experience? And that's ultimately, I think, what, that's what I was hearing from him from his PubCon thing.
Mm-hmm. And also, okay, this seems kind of random and unrelated. It is actually related, but it's very detailed. But if you're going to guest post on somebody else's blog, make sure they have the Google authorship correct. So even if the owner of the blog is out preaching Google authorship and how wonderful it is, that doesn't mean that they necessarily have it straight on the website. Because sometimes you can write this awesome article and you go search for it in Google and it's not your picture showing up, even if you've done everything right as far as authorship within the byline. So, I mean, I'm getting some techie details there, but I guess what I'm saying, I don't know what in the other language, but it's buyer beware. So when you're guest posting, you are responsible for your own Google authorship. Don't go ranting against the blog owner, because you need to see what they do as far as on their blog. And it is possible that it won't look like you wrote that article even though you did.
And what's the terminology now? And I guess we're all starting to have to learn, what is it, RDFA or RDA, or I'm not sure what the exact terminology is. But, it was interesting, when they started talking about markup and rich snippets, I thought, well, here's where the herd's going to go. And you can almost hear it in, his comments, kind of like, well, don't make that the new spam, right? Don't start marking stuff up to try to authorship up on everything, because as a matter of fact, I don't have it here in front of me, but that they're saying things like, well, we don't even know if we want everybody to have authorship now, which is, man, that's that's.
They were kind of saying that before, but more publicly.
Right, man. So, I mean, it's just, once again, I guess there's sort of two things. One, I guess you know one person, and, you and I right now, we're on iHeart Radio, which for all intents and purposes doesn't depend on Google. And so there's always, and it's always been preached by everybody who's done marketing for the last 5 years, you can't depend on Google for your traffic, right? And it's almost as if you sort of have to have this, you sort of have to have the attitude that I'm going to get as much of it as I can, but I don't know if I can stake my livelihood on it, because, man, I mean, they've just said, I mean, the impact of that, right? We don't know who we even want to have authorship. That just blows my mind, They can just make a call like that, and folks who kind of, tweak their marketing direction based on authorship, right? If they're not in that, whatever the group is, I mean, they could just kind of slide into the ether, just based on this, decision that Google makes.
Well, and I think my personal belief is the only way to remain sane in marketing, and you've already said this, Charles, is don't put all your eggs in that basket. Don't put them all in Google. No. You have to know who you are, and you've said this one just tonight, this afternoon, whatever time it is. Know who you are, where you're going, what your thing is. And if Google works, that's great. Because, even on the Google balance, if you picture a scale, on one side, you can be super, 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 super careful and not break any Google rules, and nobody will ever find you. And by the way, that doesn't mean the converse is true, that if you break the rules, you are fine. But I mean, you can be super angelic Pollyanna, you're going to get it all right. Or you can say, wait, I think this is okay. I'm not really sure, but I'm going to try this because, as I understand, it's following the rules. And you could accidentally creep over into the part where you get slapped on the hand to say you broke the rules, now you're gone, and say, oops, I didn't mean to. So, I mean, I think there are some honest people that maybe go too far, and they don't realize that because they're listening, like you said, they're listening to everyone else. So which is a worse situation? To be on the Pollyanna side and never be found because you're sitting here smelling the roses and licking your sucker and nothing is happening, or to be on the other side and try to do what's right, and oops, we messed up, but now we need to look at the other basket with the other eggs.
Yeah, and and again, it does come back down to what you mentioned. None of us are doing charity with this, right? So at some point, we've got to find a balance that, and it is ROI, right? So what's the ROI of me figuring out everything there is to figure out about a particular algorithm? I don't know what that is, right? And so I think the balance is, is there anything that can do damage to what I'm doing in terms of generating income? But then on the other side, it's kind of like you sort of, I think the way that I'm looking at it, and it didn't make sense to me until I saw Jody. I have no idea what she's doing, right? No idea what she's making. But the ROI on what she's doing is high, right? Because she doesn't have to worry about, you can tell she's not worried about backlinking. She's not worried about anything. The expertise that she's got, she's not reading blogs to go get, right? So she doesn't have to keep up with, 10 different things. She's like, keep in touch with the thing that she is an expert on, and and she just continues to kind of focus on that and to give that to whoever's willing to listen. The ROI on that is high.
You know, I think we should do another episode and revisit, because you're the first one that got me talking about actionable authority and Google authorship and kind of the crossover. It's percolating right now. I love the word percolating, but I mean, how those two fit and how one can build on the other, or maybe how they can tear each other down.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally right. And
so excellent. Thank you everyone for joining us for another Marketing Momentum with Charles and Deborah. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Don't you wanna kiss and hug me? Come on strong, go on and love me. Let's not waste that big old moon. Wake up and smell the perfume. Just say if you wanna be more than friends. Got some love I'd like to make. Maybe you can squeeze me, I won't break.